just kind of find out, where do you live and how did you find the junk removal industry to begin with?
Yeah, well, sure, man. I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. It was good to meet you too. I'm glad we got to meet. Dude, you're fucking huge, bro. I'm gonna have to follow what you're talking about with the whole nutrition thing. I'm interested to see what you talk about with that. So I'll
Hell yeah.
series that you got coming out. But I live just north of Austin, Texas. I live in Liberty Hill, and I moved down to Austin when I was 19 years old. So I went to college for a few months, wasn't the right time. And so I left about halfway through the second semester. They sent me on my way. I didn't actually leave. I just wasn't ready for college, man. I got in a bunch of trouble. It wasn't grades. I was just doing the wrong thing and wasn't ready. So I left. I grew up in Maine. And so I was going to college at Keene State in New Hampshire. And I just didn't want to go back home, like small town America. And I just didn't feel right. I felt embarrassed, like I thought I was going away to college. Everything was going to be good. I was kind of I wasn't a fuck up in school, but like I was the class clown, like we'd get into a lot of trouble, and so for me to kind of turn myself around like towards the end of high school and get into a good college, like I was going to be an environmental scientist. I thought I was going to be the weatherman. I got booted. So instead of going home to Maine, I came to Texas. My brother was down here, and so I came to Austin and ended up in Northwest Austin and did a bunch of different things for quite a few years. I didn't find junk removal until I was in my 30s. So I was bartending and ended up doing that for about 5 years. I was bartending, and then I got into doing commercial equipment loans with a broker in Austin, and that's kind of where I learned how to sell. And so we were just selling shitty loans to people with bad credit, basically, is what that deal is, And so commercial equipment loans, and I did that for a few years, and the economy tanked. So like right after the recession, and just the bottom fell out. My world fell out from underneath me. Like fuck, we lost everything. Lost like my house, like everything. We went bankrupt, foreclosure, didn't have shit. And so prior to that, I was training to be an arborist for a few years. And over the course of training to be an arborist, people would ask me, they'd be like, "Hey man, I got a couple things. Could you haul me off?" Because they knew I was like going to haul their brush off or something. And so I did it, and I didn't really think anything about it as being a business. I was just like, "Oh, well, here's an extra $50. Great, we'll add that onto the job." But when the bottom fell out, and I had to try to figure out, like, what am I doing? Am I going to go back and work for somebody else, or can I find something that works, for me? And that's when I zeroed in on junk removal, because I was doing so many different things, and the only thing that I could do 100% by myself, and it had awesome margins, was junk removal. So I
But
just
like,
went
how
all
did you? I know you said that you were doing like little random jobs and making money here and there, but like, how did you even know it was a thing back then? Was it out on YouTube? Was junk removal like a big business then, or was it
I
not
mean,
really known yet? Like,
got junk and college hunks were pretty much it. Junk King might have been around when I first started, but I didn't see him until a few years in. So I mean, I knew. I mean, I remember the slogan "Got Junk" like in middle school. Like I remember when "Got Junk" hit America, and so like I knew of it. I just didn't really know. Like I didn't know it was a full-fledged business that somebody could do. Um, but then, as I had been in junk removal, exposed to it for a few years, doing like some junk removal and like doing arborist work, and I was putting up fences. I had subcontractors doing some deck work, and so I was stretched really thin, and that's why the bottom fell out. Is like I signed up to do a couple decks, like elevated decks, and I was in over my head, and the guys that I hired weren't right for the job, and it was my fault for putting them there. But so I lost a shitload of money at 1 December, and that's when I had to figure out, I was actually applying for jobs. I was trying to be a manager for some landscape company. I was trying to go work for a site clearing company. I was filling out all these applications. I was going on interviews, and I just nobody wanted to pay me enough because I had been making enough. I had been making some money, and like self-employed, and like maybe I didn't have all of it figured out at that time, but like at the end of the day, like I had the ability to bring in $20,000 or $30,000 in sales. And so if I can figure out like all the things that's wrong with my business and connect the dots, like I can make it work. But I was trying to do too many complex things that I couldn't manage. And so that's why junk removal made the most sense, is because I don't have a bunch of contractor skills. Like I can't build a house. I mean, I guess I could. Anybody could do anything these days on YouTube, right? Like I could learn, but at the time I didn't know how to do anything. And so I
Give,
just
give me an idea. What years are we talking now? Like, what year are we around right now?
2013, 2012.
Okay, now what was like? Was there YouTube out then? Were you able to go on YouTube and see like a bunch of junk removal videos and learn about it that way, or it wasn't really big like that?
No, I didn't do anything on YouTube until I was a few years into it. And so
Okay,
I wasn't like, the only reason I'm on Facebook and YouTube is to promote my business. Like I wasn't on Facebook or YouTube as a consumer. I created a business page. Like when I realized I was the last guy that anybody knew who got on Facebook. Like I wasn't that guy. And so I was running my business quietly, and I knew that I needed to have an online presence. And so I went to Facebook. I was like, what the fuck is this? And I went to just create a business page, and I had to have a personal profile. And so that's kind of where this whole online thing started for me. But I
but
was already
what
well
I
into
want
it
to do
before that.
what I'm trying to figure out right now is like, when did it click in your head? Like, wow, I got something here. You know what I mean? Like, when did you say, okay, I got to go make an LLC? This is an official business that I could see myself doing full time. Like, when did that hit for you? Like, when did you realize, like, all right, I got to go invest, go get a truck, and really get full time into this?
2011. I formed the LLC in March of 2013.
Okay.
And so I was running for a couple of years doing junk on the side before that. So I guess it was probably 2012. Like I remember driving down the highway and thinking like several years ago that like I think I had hit like a $20,000 month or something. And I was like, oh my God, like I've made it. I hadn't obviously made it at that point, but like my first time hitting a big milestone, I was like, okay, this is it. Like we're gonna be able to do this. Like this is a thing. At that point, I turned away a lot of like contractor type jobs because I had been trying to close fences and decks and tree work.
So
But
when
that
when
just
that first $20,000 monthly income came in, that was when you're like, all right, I'm done with fencing, I'm done with all that other shit. It's time to get serious with junk removal, go all in. What were you using as a vehicle at that time? Did you have a pickup, or were you using did you go in right away with a dump truck? Like, how'd you
no,
start off?
fuck no, dude. I had nothing. I had no money. I bought an $1,100 Dodge Ram with over 200,000 miles on a 1,500. And what I did is I went into the rental outfit, John's Rental on Pond Springs in Austin. I had been going there renting trailers for like tree work and loaders, different things that I needed for jobs. So I had a good relationship with them. And I went in there and I was like, I need to rent a trailer on a monthly basis. And they had a back like a boneyard, graveyard of like all their dead trailers. And I said, man, go back there, find one that's like roadworthy. I don't care, and they gave me a deal for $450 a month on a rental trailer. And I had that rental trailer in my possession for over a year. I never once brought it back to him for maintenance. Like I did all the lights, I did the trailers, I busted a fucking axle and replaced the axle. And so like I remember bringing that trailer back to him. It was over a year, maybe 14 months or something. And it was a huge milestone for me because I'd finally been able to buy some trailers. I got a loan for six 16-foot utility trailers. And so that's kind of how it all started. And I was renting some of the trailers out. I called it U-load trailers. I did that for a couple of years, realized there was more margin in full service junk removal, and the maintenance on trying to rent out trailers doesn't make sense. So, um, there's a lot of different curves, and there still is, because even when you think that you've got it all figured out, the economy flips upside down or society changes, like COVID hits and like we all just like interact differently online all of a sudden, you know, like, so you got to be nimble. And even if you think you're doing everything perfectly, shit outside of your control is going to change. That's just the way it is. And so
Well,
it's been a fun
that sounds
ride,
like a
man. It's
great
been a hell of
story,
a ride.
brother.
What's
It's
that?
like it sounds like a great story. It's like you kind of like stumbled upon it, but it's like once you found it, you were like, all right, this is my passion. I'm gonna run with this. And seems like you did pretty good with that.
Yeah, dude. I think the thing that helped me the most is I had a friend, a family friend, that he was working with me a little bit before I went all in on junk removal, and he ended up leaving and he went full time to go work for College Hunks, and he was their lead guy for a while, like a couple years, and so he was, you know, he's leading small teams of other haulers and driving all around town, and more importantly, learning how to sell and like learning how to sell with the big guys. And so then he came back and worked with me full time. My first year, I had a dude from Guatemala or Honduras, and it just Google Translate for one whole year, just me and him, Juan. But then my second year, my friend Dylan, he left College Hunks, and he came, and for a couple years, just me and him in the truck, me picking his brain, him telling me, you know, like, well, they do it like this, you know, and like, and so this 21-year-old kid, I mean, like shit, he might have been 20 at the time, but like he taught me more about running a good junk removal business by what he learned from College Hawks. And so like I think that's probably a good lesson is like, you know, we you don't get so narrow-minded and to where you can't take feedback from other people, you know, because we can
Leave the ego on the side because you could learn from everything. And obviously
Mhm.
learning from a 21-year-old and, you know, kind of showed you the way by showing you how to franchises do the right thing. You obviously learned a lot from that. That's very cool, man.